verabschieden. Ich muss noch hinzufügen, warum.
I was just completely amazed. This is my first time in America, first time in New York. I came here and I had been around Europe. I'd seen other museums, people's private collections for motorcycle things, and a lot of them were smaller. I just had never seen something of this magnitude here. So I came here for the first time. All I had really seen was upstairs, a lot of the really old, beautiful motorcycles, and I just was shocked. My heart was beating. I couldn't believe that there was someone else that had that much passion about just everything in the motorcycle world, and just somebody that was so passionate. And I really felt that instead of just selling the Wall of Death, just getting rid of it, I really felt that putting it in a museum like this would really give it what it was worth.
Pretty big on eBay each day, 3 or 4 times. So I saw the wall, which is actually Stalvon. Every day, maybe 3 times a day, I will search under the Wall of Death. So there's posters, and then finally there's a real wall, an actual wall. And I had to understand what Stelvand, this steep wall, is.
Folgendermaßen, wir haben es erst
When I initially wanted to sell it, I posted it just for Europe. So we had France, the Netherlands, Germany, Austria, just countries close to us looking at this to buy. And I got a few responses from a bunch of dummies, basically, that just, a lot of them said, in exchange for the Wall of Death, I'll give you a camper. Or if I were to buy this, how much could I earn using it? And it just was a lot of, people didn't really understand what it was. And we just kind of toyed with the idea. My wife suggested, let's try to sell it in America. Let's kind of broaden who's going to be able to buy this. And so that's when we decided, let's see if we can find someone in America that would do it justice.
Wir beide kommen aus dem Süden von der Bundesrepublik Deutschland.
We're both from southern Germany.
Es ist ein kleines Dorf
It's a very small town
zwischen Stuttgart und München
in between
im
Stuttgart and
Süden der
Munich.
Bundesrepublik. Geboren bin ich aber in Stuttgart.
I was born in Stuttgart.
Angefangen habe ich mit 14,5.
When I was
Mein
14, I
Traumberuf war
began with my dream to
Flugzeugmechaniker.
be working with airplanes and, work with mechanic.
Aber die Ausbildungsstätte war zu
But
weit
the
weg
training
in
was way too
Frankfurt.
far away. It was in the city of Frankfurt.
Und dann haben mein Vater und ich wir uns entschlossen.
And then when I was
eine Firma
14, my father and I decided that we should go and work with a moped company. And so both of us started working there, and it was a training process.
Jahren. Immer das, die weiter mit dem F. Ich kenn's wieder. Ganze Minute. So, jetzt lass mal anhängen. Gut. Jetzt pass auf.
Jetzt überprüf mal 7,15 Meter, jetzt haben wir ja Meter.
Ah, jetzt haben wir Meter.
Ob das passt, was wir gemessen haben. Ging hier mit der Hallenhöhe zusammen, weil wir hatten die Maße bekommen.
Well, we took so much time measuring everything because when Gene first sent us the measurements of the hall down here, we got the height and we thought about it and we said, well, this might not work because it might be a little bit too, the wall might be a little bit too big to fit in here. So when we got here, what we wanted to make sure was that when we assembled it, there would be no columns in the way, that the stairs would still be very easily accessible to anybody that wanted to go up there, and also that eventually we could get even the tent on top set up because, we had the height measured with all the pictures and the lights on top, but we didn't really calculate the tent and how much higher that is. So we wanted to find a point in the ceiling that would even be a little bit higher so that we could have the tent up and everything else and still have it accessible and not blocked by anything, and that we wouldn't have to sacrifice taking anything down.
Problem. Aber es ging. Und man sieht vor allem, dass
And we had thought about when we first got here, if there was anywhere else in the room that would work, maybe having it turned at a different angle, but there was really no way that the measurements were all going to work. We had to take a little bit out of the height of the ceiling, but we didn't want to sacrifice any of the paintings or any of the lights that are up there because it all is part of the display. So we had to do a little bit of adjustments, but we really wanted to work and make sure that it's completely parallel to the floor tiles, that it's completely perpendicular to the wall, that it really just fits in here perfectly because it isn't going to be moved. We didn't want it to be a little bit skewed and a little bit crooked. It had to look perfect.
Gut? Second is good. Picture 6 meter high is good. On the front, bingo.
Ich war damals mit meinem Beruf auf einer Messe.
We ran into each other kind of just coincidentally. We weren't introduced by anyone. I didn't know what he did at the time. I knew he was with a show, but I wasn't really sure what he did. And then a few days later, the conference was over, so that kind of ended.
wusste groß nicht, was ich mache. Wir trafen uns halt einfach. Six, and I'll show you. My caravan was broken because it falls on my caravan. Und da hatte es bei mir schon ein bisschen gefunkt. Aber wie gesagt,
Well, at this point, it was now a few months later. I just by myself went to go see a Wall of Death show, just at a conference, just to look. And I ran into him. He was working at the show, and I went up to him and kind of just said, "Hey, I think we met each other already," and we just got to talking then. And actually, at the time, at that show, his kind of like employees and everybody else around him, everyone was sick, so there was nobody to help put together the Wall of Death. So he was just kind of there by himself, alone, with all this stuff, so I offered to help him at that time.
Als ich die Steinwand
Well, at the time, I actually kind of noticed that my friends, close friends, and my family, like aunts, uncles, cousins, things like that, a lot of them thought I was a little bit crazy at first for doing this Wall of Death, because they said, you're going to get on this little tiny bike and you're going to go sideways around a circle. It's kind of dangerous, maybe you should reconsider. But my at the time girlfriend was really just the one that was behind me. She motivated me. Any idea that I had, should I make this higher, should I do this, she just was with me 100%.
Nee, hier, unten. Das ist unten. Und jetzt so.
the first years we does it only with muscles, not with a crane.
Yeah.
We go here and then we go to lunch.
Moment, look, wie viel haben wir?
Genau, und dann habe ich zu ihm gesagt, das ist kein Problem.
He just couldn't believe that I had offered to help him. He said, no way, I had makeup, nails done. There was no way that I was going to be putting this together, and a lot of hard labor. And he said, no way. So a few days later, Monday morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, I was there with my work clothes on, ready to go. And he shows up and he's just kind of looking at me like, wow, she's really here. She really is telling me the truth. And he thought about it. He said, well, here's a girl that can work and she's not afraid to work. So that's a good thing.
Moment. 1, 2. In der Mitte. Und jetzt.
Strong, 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 strong. Push, 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 push.
Push, push.
Yes. Okay.
Moment. Da kann man hier.
This scratch is Trump. Yeah. Oh, jeez.
Spaß. Also. Da kommt's ja. Jetzt. So. Oben. Achtung, Probe zu haben. Ihr?
Ja, ja.
Make it nice.
Bitte oben ranziehen, ist das geht. Das ist gut, der kommt. Der geht. Ist gut. Der kommt. Okay? Okay. Und. 1 Meter. Stop. Drive in this.
Das ist sehr wichtig. Es gibt die alten Steilwände.
It's really important to use a different type of wood, because normal wood was what was originally used on a lot of walls of death. And if you try to find a wall of death now that's 60 years old, you can't find one because they've all started to fall apart and rot, and they're not usable anymore. They're not even something that you can repair. So by using a wood that's a little bit different, it's wood that for 10 years is kind of compressed, so it's dried out completely, so there's no moisture in it, and then it's also protected against any elements. So this wall of death can be out in freezing conditions, wind, rain, and nothing's going to happen to it because it's very important to make sure that there are no little gaps, to make sure that the wood isn't warped. Because you can imagine just driving around that, if it's not a perfectly flat surface, if it's not completely uniform, it's just not going to work. And if you were to use normal wood to build one of these, any sign of rain, any sign of moisture, any freezing conditions, if it's too hot, too humid, it's just going to cause the wood to warp and just kind of get a little bit rotten, and it's not going to work for you.
Verwinden, würde anfangen zu faulen und wäre kaputt.
Right in front of your camera.
Jetzt? Ja, okay. So, hier, halt. Gut. Vorsicht. Genau. Problem. Schau.
For the top where the customers stand to watch the show.
Warum?
That's not as important because that's painted wood, so it's protected, it has a lacquer on it, so it's not going to really be damaged if it's out in the rain. It's just the inside of the wall of death can't have any paint on it. It's just natural wood. There's nothing else on it other than just the wood itself. So when we take the tent off of the top, when we're getting ready to pack it up, if it's raining for 8 hours, you know, by the time we disassemble the whole structure, it's not going to really damage the inside. So that's really why the wood inside has to be important, because it is going to be exposed to the elements.
Somebody the ladder on the side, please.
Good? Okay. Let's go.
The middle of this. And you get
The finger.
The finger.
Only this side, this is good. Aber this side I see here. Nur ein bisschen so. Gut.
Die Seile, erstens mal, die unteren Seile halten den Kessel zusammen.
The structure around the outside of the wall is kind of what lets it to be a little bit elastic, so when you're riding around it, it's not just a completely solid circular shape. It has a little bit of ability to move, so that when you're in there with a bike, there's a little bit of wiggle room, just, you know, just so it bends around you. But what's really important is the viewing deck on top, where everybody stands when they're watching the show. It can hold up to 140 people, but usually you figure about 100 people will be standing there, and you figure they are each 80 kilos, 160, 170 pounds. That's times 100 people, that's a lot of weight. And the weight is actually what helps push the wood down and keeps it stable. So if you only have 10 people standing up there, it's not going to be as safe as if you had 100 people standing up there.
Bei Starkstrom, bei der großen Stecker.
We're 60
50 or
hertz.
60?
60 hertz. Because a clock will work automatically here, 60 per second.
Pro second, yeah?
Yes, 60 per minute.
Yeah, it's too many. Here it's 50.
It's 50, yes. It's different.
480 roughly here at 60 hertz.
Three phase.
Three phase. Okay. So if we can use a transformer to reduce it to 380, or step it up depending on where I'm getting my voltage from in the building. You know what I mean? It's either going to go up or down depending on what we have to utilize.
This building will have three phase.
Right, yeah, there is three phases here. So I need to find a large enough source.
Right in back of here. It's the next, I'll show you where.
Right, he showed me that the panels that are recessed in the block wall.
Right.
Right, well now we need to get power out of those recessed panels that are in the block wall, out of them. So we gotta see how we're gonna do that.
Does the hertz bother the cycles? Because he's 50 or 60?
It potentially could.
Potentially could.
You're talking about
Is it that much? Is it different?
I've hooked up machines over in EO Mary, over across Broadway, that come from Germany and Switzerland and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And 50 hertz, 60 hertz, it was never an issue.
It's
It
good.
doesn't bother.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't bother, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand. I think so, yeah. 50, 60. Especially when I have an electric engine.
Okay.
This is what on another then. We have a big, in German, thing, 15 hertz, maximum 52 hertz, hertz and 60 tomorrow. Aber es sind big electric with 60, 70, 80 kilowatt. Das
Right.
sind big und so weiter. Out of 3 phase, 380, 380 volts. Und da muss 50, Maximum 52 Hertz. Aber hier, das sind nur Lamps. Das ist übrigens immer No 220, 60, 60, 60, 60, Quarter. Und the next 60, 60, 60, 60. Ist immer 220, the next 220. One burns, defect, all out.
Right,
This
okay.
or this,
In
like
series.
you are-
Okay, yeah.
Serious. Thank you. Serious. In serious.
Took me a minute, but I got it.
Immer for in serious.
Well, that's one thing. we have.
Serious.
Serious, yeah.
I think what is 1, 2, 3, 4? Serious.
Serious.
Serie. Ah ja, logisch. Are you serious? In German Serie. Ist dasselbe. Aber hier. And the Kass. Damit the people come to pay und so weiter. Hier ist der Kass. Da muss ein
So
bisschen
there's
Light.
flash on the class then?
Ja,
Just on the cash?
an der Cash, an der Cash. An der Cash ist klack, 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 klack. Ja?
Okay.
Aber hier,
See, that may have to do with
lamps.
the hertz. That has to do with the hertz. The hertz make, if we have too many hertz, no flash no more maybe. Because resistance makes flash on off.
ja, richtig.
Resistance,
Ja, richtig. On, off, and off.
Ja.
Aber das ist hier nicht. Ja.
that's got to do with the hertz though. Or 60 hertz, yours 50, on, off might no go on, off no more.
Well, we'll find out shortly.
Und er meint jetzt, bei 50 oder 60 Hertz,
Does that may have to interfere with the flashing unit?
can you say, oh, good this?
There, this, and there, this.
Standing. Also einer
This
hier,
come
hier,
inside,
einer oder
stand.
unten.
Here. There is this. Later, okay?
Noch hier. Oh, was hin? Okay. Next. So, this side.
Who did all the artwork?
Das ist ein Freund von uns gewesen, der das macht.
A friend from us actually did that.
Er macht das beruflich, also das ist sein Hauptberuf.
That's his career. He's an artist, and he did that for
Das
us.
Design, wie, das kommt von uns. Er hat
And-
umgesetzt, was wir wollen.
The design actually came from us. He painted what we designed for him.
And be careful, you may not stand here. Only to here, yes? The same on the left side. Yeah.
Let's go. Okay.
Got it? And strong, yeah. Give force, yes. Yeah.
One moment. Jetzt, in my side. Over the Bügel, schau mal, ob da Haken ist. Ist da bitte?
Was wohl haken?
Schwieriges Problem. Auf der einen Seite, es gibt ja die moderne, exakte.
It was a real mix between having something that was historical and nostalgic, between modern art with a lot of airbrushing and just perfect and just really perfect facial features. So that's why everything is kind of a mix of airbrush. And by using the bright, powerful colors, it really shows the power of the show and the exhibition, and just it really works with the show.
Several years ago, I had purchased this Wall of Death model, made in Germany by Fowler. This is HO scale. It's boxed and it's detailed. The name, I hadn't heard of this first, as far as the name Inferno de Moltern and the Pits. You know, I have no idea who Pitt is. This is maybe in 2007. So then when I see the eBay ad and then I see the picture, it's the same thing. So I'm going, then I said, we have to get this because it's all the detail, you know, for a railroad layout, HO scale. It shows the trucks, you know, the trailers, the signage in full scale. And Pitt had explained that this was, they chose, Fowler chose Pitt's wall as being the best wall to build the model from because of the detail. I think Pitt explained they looked at maybe 4 or 5 or 6 walls in Europe and then went with Pitt's.
Wow, that's quite an honor.
Ja, ist great,
was
ist
an
great.
honor,
Ja,
yes.
das war's.
Es war eine Ehre.
Eine Ehre für mich.
It was really an honor for me.
Wir haben viele Diskussionen gehabt mit Faller, auch die Vorbereitung. Ich habe die ganzen Detailpläne gemacht.
It was really like 2 or 3 months of work for me because I couldn't just take a picture of this and send it to them, and you know, they couldn't just replicate it that way. I had to exactly measure every single piece from each individual step, you know, to each light bulb. They had to have a correct measurement of all the different types of lights, all the different pieces of wood, any of the railings, everything had to have an exact measurement, and it took me several months to put that all together. And when I was done, the pages for all the plans for this kit was almost like a small book. That's how many plans there were, and it was just such an honor for me that they looked at a bunch of other different walls of death throughout Europe, and they really just decided on mine being the best, the most elaborate, the most detailed, the most, you know, mathematically sound, and just the most impressive one to replicate.
Das ist closed. A plane. Closed halt.
Okay.
Ist noch nicht finish. Ah, yeah.
You know this? Same procedure as every year, James.
What's the next? This side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right side. Weg. Verbindung und nicht hier. Die hat schon was gesagt.
we go here. Yes.
Carefully.
So, careful. So, go.
Yeah,
Wait,
yeah,
boom.
carefully.
Careful.
Thank you. Ende Januar ist der erste in Leipzig in Dortmund in den großen Hallen.
Between January and December every year, we were probably in between 25, 28 different cities, give or take. And kind of when you think about it, a couple weeks in the summer for vacation, it was once a week of taking it down, putting it back up, traveling, but it was just my wife and I, you know, so it was really a lot of work. And then it's not only just putting it down, taking it up, it's also loading it into the trucks, getting the trucks ready to go, driving to the next city, parking, unpacking, and all that stuff. And over the years, I did have a few younger people between 18, 25 years old helping us out, and they would seem to show a little bit of interest in what I did. And then when they would ask if they could help me and see what I did, you know, I would have them help me take the wall of death down or reassemble it. And after 3 or 4 hours, they would just be sitting down, you know, I can't do this anymore, I'm done. How much longer do we have to do this for? Why do we have to do this? And they just didn't have as much passion as I did. They didn't have the interest. They just were, you know, kind of interested in making a little bit of money, but it wasn't really something that they were passionate about.
Same procedure.
And I drive with this tire. I drive here.
Das ist so. Normally, 500 miles, then change. Yeah, so
It is dead. That's what I said. Let the man rap a plan, said he'd send him home, but his hope was a rope, and he should have known. It's hard to understand. There was love in this man. I'm sure I would agree that his misery was his woman and things. Now Fred is dead. That's what I said. Everybody's misused him, ripped him off and abused him. Another junkie plan. Pushing down. That's how it goes.
Das jetzt das Innenkart, oder?
Innerkart, ja.
If you wanna be a junkie, remember Fred is dead.
Okay, jetzt front. Am besten ist hier Stand. Ja.
We're all built up to progress, but sometimes I must confess we can deal with rockets and dreams, but reality, what does it mean? Ain't nothing said. Cause Fred is dead.
Denken.
Pitt's profession has been, instead of like everyone else making everything bigger, huge, giant, he's been making everything smaller, but it's still, the mechanics of everything are still perfect. It's just, it's something you can't see a picture or video of. It's something you really have to see in person to really see how it works.
Weil die Oktanzahl ist hier etwas niedriger und ich fahre
in the US it's a little bit harder because the fuel has a lower octane, and like an airplane, for example, would use 100 octane, so that's something that I really use, because without it the bike will still work, but with it it just gives a lot more pressure in the compression, and it works a lot better with more
Aber der
power.
Motor hat nicht optimale Leistung.
The left side.
Guck mal hier. Weil die Lampe geht auf, rechtzeitig. So ist gut. Der Carburetor. Normal. Aber you see, carbonara, the hand open to zack.
All the years I said to you, we must turn this taste with
Hello. Hello. This is a little machine. What I make. Zack, zack, zack. This is tomorrow. Okay?
Und das linke Auge quasi ist immer an der Fahrbahn, weil ich ja meine Haken schlage.
You know, when people come to see the show, you want them to have a good time. It's an experience. It's not just something that they're going to go watch for 5 minutes. So you have all age groups in the audience. You might have little kids, you might have adults. You might have adults that have been drinking a little bit because they are at a show. And you always have to assume that there could be a few people in the audience that are going to be a little bit crazy. So there have been times when people will reach down, not trying to do anything wrong, not trying to cause anyone any harm, but they'll reach down, you know, to try to say hi to me, try to wave, anything like that. And there was one time where just as I was approaching, going around one of a certain area, there was a fan that was there with a giant thing of beer. He reaches down, and not to do anything wrong, not trying to cause me any harm, but reaches down and it broke my shoulder, you know, when they run into you, because going that fast around a wall like that, I can't really steer out of the way. If I had seen it, you know, far enough in advance, I would have been able to go around it, but it just was way too fast. But he was just trying to say hello, trying to have a good time. You know, it's going to happen anywhere. It's an audience. You can't really control what they do, but, you know, you do have to entertain them still.
Das bringt der Motorsport mit sich. Ob jetzt Formel 1 oder Speedway oder andere Motorsportarten. Es ist nun mal in der Natur, oder nicht in der Natur, falsch gesagt.
It's going to happen really with any motorized sport that you're involved in. Accidents will happen, and a lot of it has to do not necessarily with the technique or the skill of the driver. A lot of time it's just mechanical problems. And you know, you see even with like Formula One, there'll be a motor in a car. It's $2 million for the motor, but then as soon as they go to start, it explodes. You know, it's just something that you can't really expect. You just have to deal with once it happens.
This is jetzt the last finish here, the last part. And after this last part, the bolts is clean the wheels, clean the tires, and so on, and then it's finished. This bolts here, here in. This is this. That's the last. Gut. Und so geht's halt so an. Okay, finish. Lie here. When I stop here, $1, $2, and so on in America, then I need the money and it's here. No, so I have here a box, goes rein. When I make fast, the next show here comes vor, dass $1 oder $2 after hier reinfällt. Und jetzt waren es hier halt 12 Euros. Gut. 2 packets cigarettes.
These are the most important parts for this, for the holding.
It's good. Let's finish. Let's go. Moment. 1, 2. 1. Feather 3. Okay, und? Right. I hear.
Heavy mind, heavy side, making money all the time. My LV and just me for all junkies to see. Ghetto Prince is my name, making love all I swing. I'm your pushing. Two bags, please, for a generous fee. Make your world what you want it to be. Got a woman I love desperately. Wanna give her something better than me. Been told I can be nothing else. Just a hustler inspired.
Normally you're just looking up or you're looking down or you're looking to the left or right when you're riding, but after years and years of doing that, your eyes almost get trained, so you can basically have one eye looking at the audience and the other eye looking in front of you, just a few millimeters off, but just enough that you can see where you're going and you can still make eye contact with the people that are there to watch you.
Ja, natürlich, das ist ganz klar. Bei jedem Pilot und bei jedem Rennfahrer, bei jedem Rennfahrer, bei jedem
It's kind of like a puzzle, you know, you have to use your eyes, your brain, you have to use skill, training, and things like that, because not only are you thinking about where you're going and what you're doing, you also have to be looking at the audience, looking at where you're going, but then it's not just hopping on a motorcycle and riding around, you have to have skill, you have to know how to shift, how much gas to give. If you give too much, it's not going to work. If you don't give enough, you're going to fall. How much brake to use, if any. You're going to have to turn at the right angle in order to maintain that position to get around the wall. And there have been a lot of really bad injuries, several deaths of people that just didn't know what they were doing, and it really is like a puzzle. All those aspects have to work together in order for you to be successful.
Aber das hängt damit zusammen, Unvernunft und Professionalität.
Okay, jetzt, how much, wie viel? Jetzt, look.
Also selbst wenn ich sie auf die Tribüne stelle, reicht's nicht. Selbst. Ich stehe auf der Tribüne, gell?
Hoffentlich stimmt das Maß. Warte mal von hier. Genau hier.
Minimumgeschwindigkeit sind ca. 40-45 Kilometer in der Stunde. Müsst ihr jetzt hochrechnen auf Meilen. Warum? Damit
When I'm going around the wall, I'm not completely perpendicular to the wall. I'm a little bit, not quite at a 45-degree angle, but definitely at an angle. And by going too slow, you're not going to maintain that angle. The wheels are going to slip a little bit. You're going to almost end up perpendicular, and then you're not going to really be able to sustain going around the wall. So for a minimum, it's 45 kilometers per hour.
Und jetzt kommen wir zur anderen Sache. Die Höchstgeschwindigkeit liegt normalerweise 60, 70 Kilometer in der Stunde. Ich wollte aber wissen, das war im Jahre 89,
Well, really the maximum that you can do safely around the wall is 60 to 70 kilometers per hour, and that's generally how fast you want to go. But there was a time, mid-90s, I wanted to see how fast you could go. Not necessarily should, but how fast could I go around it. So I had somebody with a stopwatch time me, and I was doing 85 kilometers per hour, which was the fastest that you really could ever go, and that actually set a record for that width of a wall.
Pressdruck.
Ja, das geht Millimeter vor Millimeter. Das ist ein VW German Car, VW Wagenheber, Car Lifter. More? nicht und das geht nachher in der Box. Okay. So, jetzt schauen wir mal. Wir sind auf Maximum.
A lot of beginners, when they're starting out with this, have a problem with circulation and with their blood.
Ich fange an zu pumpen. Ich drücke,
I almost have to press my organs together and use all of my muscles to compress to get blood to go up into my head, to keep my eyes functioning, to keep my brain alert, so that there's enough blood in my head that when I'm going around, I don't black out at that speed.
I come from German, for all peoples. My English is not so good. I come from German, and the first time here with the Wall of Death. I'm so happy my wall stand here in the museum. Today I drive more shows. Jetzt 10:30, then 12, 1, 2, 3, and so on. Okay. I have, bitte, was heißt bitte? Bitte, ich habe eine Bitte. I'm beginning slow. We have children here, okay? No angry, I give my best, okay? The tire must I begin slow, okay? I begin slow. My tire is warm, jetzt ist better, und jetzt attention. I give my best.
There's a set going strong, a lot of things going on. The man of the hour has an air of great power. The dudes have envied him for so long. Oh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions why. The only game you know is do or die. Hard to understand. What a hell of a man. This cat of the slum had a man, wasn't dumb. But a weakness was shown, cause his hustle was wrong. His mind was his own, but the man lived alone. Ooh, Superfly, you're gonna make your fortune by and by. But if you lose, don't ask no questions.
this year and 8 months standing in my truck. This was my first ride wieder in diesem Jahr und es ist gefährlich, aber ich freue mich hier zu sein, kein Absturz. Ich habe etwas langsamer angefangen, nicht das hohe Risiko, aber ich denke gegen heute Mittag noch etwas brachialer.
Okay. It started off a little bit slower because this is the first time in 8 months that he's done a ride, but now later on this afternoon he might have a little bit more power to it.
Okay? Okay. Applaus für Esther. This I built only week, up and down, 32 years, many work. I make alles alone with my wife. We have 1-2 helper worker, aber ansonsten alles mit my wife. She drives the truck and so on. Building and speaker information for the peoples. Ach, muss ich übersetzen. Aber all around team.
I just think it's so great that they've, instead of just taking one wall of death and just honoring that they've chosen to make this whole part of the museum dedicated to walls of death everywhere. Not just ours, but to everybody else. People that we've known, people that we've seen in shows, people whose pictures are on the wall here. And it's really just an honor that they're not only honoring our wall of death, but everybody else's together. It's important to say that nothing is going to happen in your life without work being put into it. And if you really want to achieve anything great in your life, you really have to work hard to achieve that. And when you really just have a talent or a passion that you want to follow, and if it's really what you want to do, then if you go for it, then you're going to be successful if it comes from your heart and if you follow what you really want.
Heute irgendwie, ich stelle mir vor, ich möchte heute, sagen wir mal, oder als junger Mensch,
if you want to be a pilot, no matter what you want to do, just anything is possible, just do what you really want to do.
Es geht alles, nur du musst wollen. Ja?
Aber I mean good for all. Camera, forget this. Close, shut, cut.